So what's going on with all of these fake job offers that we're all seeing on our smartphones? And I want to share this video because many of our friends are starting to look for a job because we're worried about the economy cooling. You might be looking for a job. And importantly, this scam is much bigger than just the text messages that we're all getting. Okay. In fact, the text messages that just popped up, it's such a big deal that I got those images from the state of New York, the government website. Okay, and once people get these texts, then they're asked to go off platform on something like Signal, which is encrypted, and it's harder for the government, it's harder for law enforcement to track these scammers down. Okay, so as far as what's going on, like I said, it's much bigger than many of us think. We think it's a minor annoyance right now, and it's limited to our smartphones. But think about this. What if it's everywhere? What if the next time you and I are looking for a job, a fourth of the job offers are actually fake? And how do we protect ourselves? So for this, I want to go to the FTC's website, the Federal Trade Commission's website. They have an article. Title of the article is Job Scams. And the FTC article starts off with scammers advertise jobs the same way honest employers do, online in ads, on job sites, and in social media, as well as texting us, in newspapers, and sometimes even on television and radio. So, like I said, this is much bigger. The scammers promise you a job, but what they really want is your money and your personal information. Now, the FTC goes on to share with us some of the common scams, and this is what I think is important that we all know, because some of these things sound like legit jobs. Some of them don't. But let's start with this first one, with what the FTC calls a reshifting scam. If you're searching for a job online, you might see positions advertised for quality control managers or virtual personal assistants that have been placed by scammers. But they're but here's how you can tell if it's a reshipping scam. Once you're quote unquote hired, the company says that the job is to receive packages at home, throw away their original packaging and receipts, repackage the product, and then ship them to another address. So you know what you're doing here is you're handling merchandise that was bought with stolen credit cards or was scammed from somebody else, and you're repackaging and shipping it out. So you unknowingly are becoming part of this crime ring. So something as innocent as this could really get yourself in trouble and just be a huge headache, right? I mean, you've got the best of intentions, but we need to know about these. Here's another one. This is where jobs are advertised. Again, this could be, in a legitimate job website. It could even be on radio, according to the FTC. Okay, and this is for nannies, caregivers, and personal assistants. And in here, if you apply, the person that hires you might send you a check. They tell you to deposit the check, keep part of the money for whatever services you're providing, and then send the rest of that money to someone else. That's a scam. A legitimate employer will never ask you to do that. This FTC article is super helpful. How about this one? Mystery shoppers. Now, mystery shopping is when you go into a retail location, you might go into a retailer, a clothing store, and you write up a report as far as, how is the team doing as far as greeting customers? Are they following the procedures? So the FTC article says, while some mystery shopping jobs are honest, many are scams. Honest mystery shopping companies won't ask you to pay for certifications, directories of jobs, or job guarantees. If somebody asks you to pay to get a job, that's a scam. Okay, so there's a couple examples, but now, how do we protect ourselves? Whether it's for ourselves, our friends, a family member that might be looking for a job. I mean, these are some of the worst people on the planet because you think about it, when you lose your job, that's a very stressful time and you're vulnerable. And you're also hopeful. You're hoping that, your next job is gonna be a great job. You're hoping it's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress, and frankly, you're hoping to get out of that situation so you can start being productive again. You can start getting paid as opposed to, looking for a job is unpaid work. So, these scammers are taking advantage of people when they may be at their most vulnerable. So here's some things that the FTC says to avoid getting scammed. First, this is a good idea. They say to search online, but to search online for look up the name of the company or the person who's hiring you, plus the word scam, review, or complaint. Because if they're scamming you, they're likely scamming other people. It's not a guarantee. It's not for sure you're going to protect yourself, but it it's better than doing nothing, right? And I don't want you to do nothing. So the second item that the FTC mentions is to talk to somebody you trust. Describe the offer to them and ask them, what do you think? And this will help give you some time to reflect on it and to think about the offer because scammers rely on us doing something quickly, a sense of urgency. This job's going to be taken. I have a lot of candidates. I know for sure, in the next 48 hours, we're going to have more candidates that we can hire. So there's always this sense of urgency that scammers are trying to take advantage of us with. Okay. The next thing is the FTC says don't pay for the promise of a job. Honest employers, including the federal government, will never ask you to pay for a job. Anyone who asks you to pay for a job is a scammer. That's according to the FTC. I'm sure there's exceptions, but you want to be buyer beware when that's happening. The next thing they say is never bank on a cleared check. No honest potential employer will ever send you a check to deposit and tell you to send part of that money or to buy gift cards with it. So, are there exceptions to that? I think they're very few and far between. And then what to do if unfortunately you do become a victim of a scam? The FTC says no matter how you're paid, by debit or credit card, mobile payment app, or wire transfer, gift card, cash reload card, or cryptocurrency, immediately contact the company you use to send the money. So if you put it on your credit card, if you paid with crypto, immediately call the company that you used to send that money and report the fraud and ask to have the transaction reversed. Now, here's the two key words, if possible, because unfortunately, it's highly likely that it won't be possible, but you may have a chance, so it's worth trying. And then they say to report the job scam to the FTC. You might also want to report it to the FBI and to your state attorney general. So, we need to be super careful. Unfortunately, people I get 2 or 3 of these. It's just unbelievable. If these people spent as much time on a legitimate job, they'd probably be making decent money. And unfortunately, the person on the other side of the scam oftentimes is also being exploited as well. We've read articles about that, how oftentimes the other person is in a bad situation as well, and there's somebody that's forcing them or, they have a drug habit or whatever it is. So be super careful out there. I'm glad that, the state of New York is wise to put examples of these types of scams up on their website to alert their citizens. Hopefully this video alerted you to some of this. I'm thrilled that the FTC had this article. And if you enjoyed this video, the YouTube algorithm says this is the next video of mine specifically for you that you should watch next. Thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.